Until they pay us, we can remain neutral.
Once they pay us, I love it.
All right. I mean, I love it already, but it's just like you've got to pay us to get Damon to love it.
Well, I mean...
Damon's a bit of a purist. He wants the hardware.
I like the hardware. I like the dice. I like the minutia. I like the physical affect.
Well, we all do. Welcome to Your Aleatoric Reality, the podcast that invites you to buy stocks at random. I decided that I wanted to open this episode with an invocation to Fortuna, the goddess of fate or fortune. And so I've had ChatGPT, because I'm lazy. I'm not going to write three invocations to Fortuna. I had ChatGPT write one that is praising of Fortuna, one that is sarcastic about her, and one that is neutral. So I'm going to roll for which one of these. And I think Fortuna would approve.
Yep.
I'm going to roll for what affect to invoke her in. So a 1 or 2 is going to be praise, 3 or 4 is going to be neutral, and 5 or 6 is going to be sarcastic. It's a 3, so it is neutral. Here we go.
Roll on the table instead of that book.
Oh, so you can hear it?
So it can clinky to clank.
Do you want to invalidate that roll?
No, I'm just saying future.
Oh, in the future? Okay.
Yep.
So we will begin. O Fortuna, ever-turning wheel of fate, your hand guides us all, steady yet unseen. Through rise and fall we walk your path, neither cursed nor blessed, simply bound. You are neither kind nor cruel, just the force behind the shifting tide. In your balance we find both joy and sorrow, a dance of life that none can avoid. O Fortuna, there's more, yes. O Fortuna, we acknowledge your sway, accepting what comes as it must be, for in your impartial spin we find our place, neither pleading nor praising, simply here.
Wow.
And with that, we're...
Which one was that? The praising one, I presume.
That was the neutral one.
That was the neutral one? All right. Well, yeah, I guess at the end.
So it's like joy and sorrow, you know, it's like
we are simply here.
A dance of life that none can avoid. Yeah.
I like it.
So anyhow...
it's not very Greek, but...
Well, Fortuna's Roman.
Okay. What's the Greek equivalent?
I used to know, and I can't think of it right now.
Yeah.
Thanks for pointing out the chink in my armor.
No, that's fine.
Anyhow, I wanted to tell people, hey, if you're listening at this point, if you've still listened into episode 3, please, if you haven't already, go give us a 5-star review. And if you don't think we deserve 5 stars, if you don't like the podcast for some reason, or if you have some criticisms that could help us improve, please contact us privately, youraleatoricreality@gmail.com, and we will incorporate your changes if the die tells us to. So I wanted to do a news segment. I've always tried to do a news segment, and you've always, gone off label, and we've never gotten to the news. But I have some personal news this time.
Okay.
So I thought, well, let's just take it out of the realm of like whatever's on the, on Google News. You can see that yourself. But I'll relate some personal anecdotes for the news segment. This past weekend, I had 2 different occasions where I was able to spread chaos.
Nice.
I was at a restaurant with a group of friends, and as I often do, I got out my die and I rolled for what menu item to get. And a friend of mine who was sitting next to me, who I've known him for about a year or 2, and we've become fairly close, but we haven't known each other all that long. And when he saw me rolling, he's like, "Oh yeah, are you rolling for what you're going to get?" And I said, "Yeah." He's like, "I want to try that." And so he rolled for his menu item, and he got something that he never would have ordered, but that he ended up loving.
Awesome.
And he's like, "I'm going to have to do more of this." And I said, "Then you should keep that die." And he's like, "Oh, this is the one, like, I always carry one in my pocket, right?" Mm-hmm. And it wasn't the one you made, but, obviously. But I was just so chuffed that he was, like, took to it and, like, wanted to do more. I'm like, you keep this. He's like, "I'm going to need to get one of these." I'm like, "That's yours. You keep it."
Nice.
But he...
It'll be so much cooler when we have our own branded dice that we could do that with.
When we have our own branded dice. So join the Patreon. I always want to say Patreon for some reason, but...
All 3 words.
Patreon, however you say it. Get on there and give us some money so we can print these dice and send you some. Because David's been working real hard on designing these dice, and we need to give him some cred. But yes, if you... Second news item.
Mm.
I was at a conference this past weekend, and there was a Russian man who actually lives in Toronto currently, and he's a developer. And
So he's a Canadian of Russian descent.
He's a Russian who has emigrated to Canada.
He's a Russian dissenter in Canada.
He's the center of Canada. Russia is at the center of Canada. That's what we've decided just now.
Fair. No, I know you can see it from Alaska.
Anyhow, this Russian dude heard me talking a little bit about making decisions with dice, and he seemed keen and interested. He had read The Dice Man, actually, and had played around with it a little bit. And at one point, I needed to get some fresh air, and so I grabbed my die because I was going to do a dice walk, and I'll talk about what that is in case you don't know. But I said to this dude, hey, I'm going to go out to take a dice walk. He's like, oh, I'll go with you. And he was into it. And like we went out, and you roll for which way to go pretty much. There's a couple ways that you can do it. There's a concept in mathematics called the dice walk, where if you have like a graph or a grid, and then you randomly pick a direction every time, whether you go north, south, east, or west. And because it's random, you will get a lot of retracing. It'll look like a big scribble.
Right.
Because a lot of times it will go over places that it's already been. There is also a concept in mathematics called the self-avoiding dice walk, in which you only allow the choices of places that haven't been gotten to on the grid yet. So that's what I do. And I used to do this a lot. I've blogged about it, especially when I was living in Chicago when I had a good grid system of streets. You set a boundary. Like, I'm not going to go past North Avenue, or I'm not going to go past Western, but you set your boundaries, and then within there, every time you come to an intersection where you could go any number of ways, you roll for which way to go. And if you're doing it the self-avoiding way, which is what I recommend, you don't, like, you keep a map, like we used to print out a map, and with a highlighter I would mark my trail as I went. And then, so if you get to an intersection, you can see, oh, if I go down there, I'll be at a spot that I've been to before, so I'm not going to go that way. And if doing this, you will eventually, if you have your boundaries, you will eventually end up at a place from which there is no choice anymore to leave. If you don't have boundaries, then it can go on as long as there's still streets. You could go to California.
Needs to be an app.
We will that's a great idea, because I am making a Your Aleatoric Reality app. It'll probably be quite some time till it's launched, because I'm working on it now. But that's a great feature, because I was going to have number of different
because you should be able to integrate it with Google Maps in walking mode, and then when you come to an intersection, it prompts you for a dice roll. And
that's fantastic idea. I'm going to make that a feature of the app. Feature for app. Just taking a note here.
Yep.
So what I used to do is I would take a backpack, and I would pack a little picnic for wherever I end up. And I'm just going to go, I'm going to roll, I'm going to go this way, that way, at random, until I get to a point where, okay, at this point, any direction I go, I'm going to go back to my path that I've already been on. So this is my spot where I just sit down and have a little picnic. And occasionally I would invite people to join me if they were just happy to be passing by. Nobody ever did it, because who in Chicago is going to sit down and have a picnic with a stranger? Unless, I mean, if they do, I'm more in danger than they are.
Probably.
Really.
Probably.
Yeah, but I digress. So the Russian fellow I met at the conference took a dice walk with me.
What conference was this?
This was Fluidity Forum.
Right.
It's about meta-rationality, which is essentially a secularized version of Tibetan Buddhism that was expounded upon by an AI researcher from the 90s who quit the AI business to become a Buddhist monk. But we do need a topic for the show. And what we have done in the past is roll for, well, the first time we rolled for topic or Q&A. Then I added a possibility of debate. We rolled Q&A both times.
Yeah, we're not doing that again.
Well, I still have it on the list. Okay. You don't want to do that again?
I mean, it's all we've done.
We should really do that if we have a guest.
Right.
So we can take Q&A off the list for this iteration. And the subject I've added is review, which was formerly called Media, Games, and Lit, but we never rolled that either.
Okay.
So we either have a topic that we discuss, we debate something,
Okay.
or we review some media which can be obtained randomly or just whatever we've seen recently
Okay.
or read. It could be a book or a game.
I'm not going to read a book.
Yeah, I read books. But I've been watching shows more lately than books because, you got, moderation in everything, including moderation.
Fair enough.
So here we go. Topic, debate, or review. And we've got topic.
Topic.
Do you want a random topic, or should we choose a selection of topics we would like to discuss and then roll from among them?
Well,
Or we could put a random topic on our list of possible topics. I do have some ideas written down. We could talk about the Monty Hall problem.
okay.
I don't know what we'll say about it. We could talk about... Well, I wanted to do a whole episode on divination at one point.
Okay, that'd be cool.
Which could be this.
Morton's list.
We could talk about... Okay, I'll gotta start listing these down then. Divination. Morton's list. We've probably already talked about the Dice Man.
I'm
Have
not
we?
familiar, no.
The Dice Man. Monty Hall problem.
One topic that I had was random Dungeons and Dragons.
Random Dungeons and Dragons.
Or random role-playing game.
And I'll pick one random topic. And for those of you playing along at home, how I do this is I go to Wikipedia, and Wikipedia has what probably to many people is a frivolous feature, but what to me is an extremely useful feature
Right.
called Random Article. If you go to the Wikipedia main page and you go to the
That's actually a good time. I've done that before.
side menu,
It's
there's
not the
actually a
first page
game.
you pull up. It's the 17th dive you end up on. It's
Well-
the rabbit hole you explore.
have you heard of the game Wikipedia Quest for the Holy Grail?
No, I have not.
So there's a game. It's a solitaire game. You go to Wikipedia, you select the menu item on the left side that says random article, and then you only by clicking links in the article, you try to get from whatever article you got, you try to get to the article on the Holy Grail.
Oh, God.
And
That's
so
great.
usually you're trying to chunk up to Italy or Christianity or something like that, and then you can narrow into...
Carpenter's Cups.
That's not usually I don't think they have a Wikipedia page on Carpenter's Cups. They might have they certainly have a page on Indiana Jones,
Right.
in which case there's an easy way to get to it from there.
That's not the cup.
There's lots of strategies. But I'm not doing that right now. I'm just picking one random article to put on the list. Peter Short, the footballer.
Well, there's
We're
a
not
topic I know nothing about.
Yeah, we're not going to talk about him unless we roll for it, and then we're going to have to learn a lot about him in short order. No pun intended. Peter Short. Okay, I've got 6 topics. I happen to have a chance cube in my hand. You ready?
A chance cube?
That's what Watto calls it in
I know.
Phantom Menace, Star Wars Episode 1. Although his chance cube is a D2,
Yep.
because there's 3 red dots and 3 blue
Let's
dots.
not talk about Watto.
All right.
It's such a Jewish stereotype. It's really offensive.
I thought he was supposed to be an Arab stereotype.
Okay.
Or people read into it that he is an Arab or Jewish stereotype. I don't buy it. We've had this conversation
Yeah,
before.
let's
We don't need to do
just
it
leave
again.
it there.
If you have strong opinions about this, dear listener, please email us and tell us how right or wrong we are. If that's about anything we say. Here we go. Topic. It rolled off the
I'm
table.
not saying George Lucas is a racist. I'm just saying he's lazy.
That may be. But what my point, if I hadn't said it on the show before, is that if you're going to try to come up with different ways to speak English to sound different as though you're an alien trying to speak English, the human mouth is only capable of making certain sounds, and
Right.
all of those sounds have already been made in some culture in the world. So whatever accent an actor tries to make up, it's going to remind somebody of something.
That's always the problem with sci-fi, is that in a world of random universes...
In a world of random universes.
a world of random universes. That's the stupidest thing I've ever said. Everybody breathes the same atmosphere. Everybody is somewhat humanoid. Everybody speaks in sound.
Everybody has mouths.
Right.
Except for the Trisolarians. Are you down with Three Body Problem? The Trisolarians are different.
I tried Three Body Problem, and I just could not get into it. It was just boring.
All right, I'm going to roll for our topic. Our topic is The Dice Man.
All right, cool.
Okay. Relevant, because
I assume we are not talking about Andrew Dice Clay.
We are not talking about Andrew Dice Clay. We are talking about a novel that was written in what was published in 1971, I believe. Mm-hmm. Written by... the pen name, the name it was written under was Luke Reinhardt, which was also the name of the main character, which was probably purposely meant to lead people to the conclusion that the man who wrote the book was a psychiatrist and had done all of this dice rolling and then just wrote a story about what he did. It was actually an English professor named George Cockcroft.
George Cockrock?
Cockcroft.
Oh, okay.
Who, he had done a little bit of the dice experiment, like, roll for, what album are we going to listen to? What, which beer are we going to buy? Him and his friends in college did a little bit of that. And then he decided to write a novel about a psychiatrist who starts doing that and then starts recommending that his patients do it and then starting dice centers and then getting in trouble with the law and all kinds of crazy antics. But it became very popular in the 70s. It was kind of a phenomenon to the extent that he did continue being a literature professor, but he wouldn't have had to work for the rest of his life. He just became this celebrity author. Although he wrote a bunch of books after that. None of them ever did it as well as the first one, but the first one apparently made him enough money to keep him and his wife comfortable for the rest of their days, which he is no longer with us. He perished a couple of years ago. I don't remember the year offhand. But there's a couple of good, if you look up George Cockcroft, the author of The Dice Man. There's
Which
a couple
you could do with the computer right in front of you.
Couple really good. I don't want to just read off of the internet on this show because people can, it's nice to give people little tidbits and then how you can
sure
go further down that rabbit hole if you choose. But The Dice Man is kind of a historically important work in the field of random reality because it is it's not the first, but it's one of the first depictions of people making decisions with dice. And it might be the first one with dice because prior examples were Two-Face in Batman who flipped his coin. And there was also a Donald Duck cartoon from the 40s where there was a con man selling the philosophy of flippism. He signed Donald Duck into his flippism cult, and Donald Duck started making decisions by flipping a coin. He ended up going the wrong way down a one-way street and getting a ticket. So there you go. He, in Donald Duck's case, random reality did not make things better.
Well, because he was doing it wrong.
He was doing it wrong, wasn't he? But anyhow, I digress.
Random reality should never lead you down the wrong path.
It should only lead you down a different path.
Correct.
Which is why the Masters of Reality...
And by wrong, I intentionally mean things that are illegal, things that you shouldn't be doing, things that you don't want to do, things that are bad.
Yeah, well, we will, at some point on this podcast, I'm sure, get to the 6 tenets of the Secret Masters of Random, which are 6 principles to guide the options that you choose to list. And we've mentioned some of them before, like, obviously don't list something that you wouldn't or couldn't do.
Right.
Because the die roll should feel obligated. You should...
Kill yourself should never be an option.
Kill yourself should never be an option. Because you should feel committed to do the result when you roll. You shouldn't roll and then be like... Oh, I really don't want to do that one. I'm going to roll again. You should never re-roll.
You should never have to cut off your own penis and flush it down the toilet.
You should definitely never do that. Never put salt in your eyes.
Always put salt in your eyes.
Kill Jeffrey. All right.
So
anyone listening to this show would have to have seen all the shows that we've seen and listen to all the music that we've listened to.
Actually, that was
in order to understand anything we say.
Me and my old friend Steve, we used to be roommates, and we would watch very bad television. And one time, there was an episode of Jerry Springer or some shit like that.
Cherry Springer?
Jerry Springer.
I thought you said Cherry Springer, like it was a porn parody of Jerry Springer.
I mean, that would be interesting, and I would watch it, but that's not what I'm talking about. But anyway, at some point, this guy, like, as a solution to a problem, I think it was something to do with a woman. He chopped off his own penis and flushed it down the toilet. And we at that point decided it was an inside joke. That was Plan Z.
Plan Z, chop off your penis, flush it down the toilet.
Right.
That's not a good idea.
No, that's why it's Plan Z.
You should never, ever list that on your options before you roll.
Exactly.
Just, if you do, you're doing it without our
But the
without
theory
our
behind
authorization.
it was if you hit Plan Z, that might work.
All right. Well, I'm not gonna take that as my Plan Z, but you've made your point.
Yeah.
Whatever it may be. The Dice Man. Very important historical work in the field of random reality. I don't recommend reading it because there's a lot of... it was written in the 70s. There's a lot of outdated stuff. There's a lot of cultural insensitivity.
70s was a very interesting time for things.
Yeah, people had
Case in point, Zardoz.
a film that no one should ever watch.
Everybody should watch it. But it's terribly awesome. It's amazing that it could be such a terribly bad film at the same time as being really boring and not enjoyable.
Like, how could a movie that boring also be that bad?
No, but there's so many takeaways from it that are so good. I don't know. Well, anyway, sorry.
I mean, I don't have much else to say about The Dice Man except don't read it. It's historically important, but don't read it. The first decision it's really problematic because the first decision he makes in the book is whether or not to rape his downstairs neighbor.
Oh, Jesus.
And it's presented a little bit tongue in cheek. It's like his downstairs neighbor is like friends of theirs, and like they've been flirting, and they were going to have an affair anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And like in this time, rape could also be a term for just like sex outside of marriage. Like, hey, I'm going to go have this illicit thing. But the way it's presented is very unpalatable to me, at least. And the fact that that's the first decision he makes to set off the whole thing, it's quite terrible because otherwise, a lot of what the book talks about is how he decides he's attempting to transcend his ego. By rolling dice to make decisions, he's trying to get himself out of his
Couldn't he just take LSD?
Identifying so much with his choices. He probably does. I don't recall if he specifically does that in the book, but I think they spoke a lot of pot because it's the 70s. But anyhow, there's a lot of stuff like that makes the book like not recommendable to people. But
the concept is interesting.
But the concept where, using dice, and even when he gets to the idea that you can have good philosophical implications from this, that by not just doing things that you've thought of, you're expanding your,
experiences.
Your experience you're expanding yourself. You're kind of like getting more to a universal view than just your kind of selfish point of view. I don't know if I've ever read a Vonnegut short story.
Welcome to the Monkey House is a compilation of Vonnegut short stories.
I've read a lot of his novels.
I don't believe that man has written.
I know this about you.
He is the only author I care to read.
Yeah. Well, do you have a favorite? Could you pick out a favorite?
That's a tough question. One of the things that's problematic about Vonnegut that I didn't actually realize until there's a podcast called Kurt Vonneguys, and Michael Swain, and I can't remember who the other guy was, but two guys who used to be in Cracked did a podcast, and they went through every Kurt Vonnegut novel in order and did a synopsis and talked about how Vonnegut can't write women, which is funny.
That's true.
But what it kind of got to the point, if you listen to the podcast, which I do recommend, it's phenomenal. But reading them in order, you see a pattern that emerges. Mm-hmm. And he's kind of writing the same book over and over again, but from different perspectives and trying to get the same point across. And I don't know. You'd have to listen to it to really capture it. But by the time you get towards the end of the series, it's kind of like, okay, well, here's a concept he introduces, but we've already talked about this in the Sirens of Titan episode or the But Vonnegut was essentially rewriting the same story over and over again from different perspectives, trying to get the philosophical abstract, which is inherently family is good for the human psyche. Part of the problem with people is that they don't feel connected to anything anymore, and those kind of themes. And I think there's a lot to be said about that. That's all I have to say about that.
But, the Dice Man might be kind of opposite of that, because spoiler alert, I'm going to give you spoilers for the Dice Man plot and whatever. But I already recommended that you shouldn't read it, so it shouldn't matter.
Right.
About halfway through the book, like the end of section 1, section 2 starts a number of months afterwards. Mm-hmm. At the end of section 1, he rolls, one of his choices is to leave his wife and kids forever.
Oh my God.
And he gets that choice.
Yes, and don't put that on the list.
And so he leaves. And he feels like he needs to be pushing himself to more bigger, more radical choices. And kind of part of it, I think, is being that it was the 70s and he was trying to make money off a book. He had to make it outrageous.
So sensationalist, yeah.
Yeah. So there's a lot of good, because he was into Buddhism, he meditated a lot, the author, right? So he had a lot of good kind of ideas mixed in there, mm-hmm. but it really gets lost in the outrageousness of a lot of the over-the-top stuff he was trying to do just to sell it to a publisher.
Yeah, it sounds pretty extreme.
Yeah, but you were he can't write women either. And when you said that about Vonnegut, I was thinking, is there a male writer from the 70s that could write women well?
I think it has a lot to do with the way that women were perceived in the 70s.
By men.
Yes, yeah, correct. Also by women. But I think that's the crux of it, is that there was a lack of understanding of the female mind for the common man.
Yeah. I don't know. All I know is you read a lot of 70s novels where the humor is based on there's a girl character who wears boots, and it's just funny that she wears boots because girls don't wear boots.
Yeah, and she's a sex object.
Right.
I mean, that's really what it all boils down to, is that most women are, one of a handful of stereotypes. It's either the bitchy mother type, right, which goes into the wife, goes into the girlfriend. That's a whole hierarchy of stereotypes there. Or there's the whore, and that's kind of it. It's
or the wife.
Well, no, the wife goes into the mother, the naggy stereotype.
Oh yeah, I guess.
Yeah,
she's preventing the dudes from having fun.
Right.
Oh, this woman is just on my back. She doesn't want me to have any fun.
The restrictive woman who keeps you from fornicating randomly or whatever.
Yeah.
However you want to
and all the dudes in the 70s wanted to do was fornicate randomly. Actually, that could be a listener challenge, fornicating randomly. I'm just kidding. We're not gonna do that.
That's not for you.
Unless you want listener, if you want to take that on your own to figure out how that would work, go for it. Don't hold us responsible for the consequences. We are not paying child support on your bastard offspring. That's what I'm saying.
Fair. But we will help you create a list of names to roll from.
Oh. Dude, I would once this podcast has some budget to work with, I will happily pay any expectant parents to let us randomly name your child.
That'd be awesome.
I would love to do that. I wish I could have convinced my wife to do that with our children, but women are unrealistic. Just like nags who hold you back from having fun. She didn't want me to have fun.
No, naming children is. I don't think it's a good task for random reality.
That's why you'd have to pay someone to do it.
Yeah.
I would pay someone else. I don't want to name my own children randomly, but I would pay someone else to do it.
I mean, I don't know about you, but I put months of research and work and thought and rules making and into naming my daughter.
Oh, yeah. We did too. Yeah, we...
What rules did you have?
Well, I don't know if we had rules.
Oh, I had rules.
We had...
No stripper names.
We had very different tastes, and we had to find something...
Right.
And we did. We had boy names and girl names for both of them.
One of the other... Let's see, the rules were there were no stripper names, no ex-girlfriend names.
Okay.
Which was very problematic.
I don't think I needed to make a rule of that because I don't think I ever would have considered an ex's name for my daughter.
There was a couple that I did like, but it gets weird when you have an association. No Garbage Pail Kid names.
I don't even know Garbage Pail Kids' names.
It was like every time you come up with a name, you'd have to try to think of what that Garbage Pail Kid would be for that.
Like Rotten Ronald?
Yeah, or like whatever. Like it had to be something that couldn't be easily turned into a slander.
Like just a layup of a bad nickname.
Right.
Right.
I think those were pretty much the 3 rules, which is very restricting.
Well, because strippers can be named anything. Any name that you come up with, there is a stripper named that.
Right, but you know what I mean, like Desiree.
Oh, like... Well, no offense to all the Desirees out there. Please forgive my politically incorrect partner here.
But we did settle on Vivian.
All Desirees are
but spelled with VYVY, which was really, in honesty, just naming my daughter after one of the characters in The Young Ones and coming up with excuses and ways to make that name more interesting. But it really just came down to I wanted to name after Vivian from The Young Ones because I just always liked that name.
It's a good name.
It's just like if you look at it, it's like up down, up down, up down, up down. And it actually is it's Cornwellian. It is the Cornwellian version of Viviane, who is the French name for the Lady of the Lake.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
So one day your daughter's going to give somebody a sword and he's going to be the rightful king of England.
Perhaps.
Yeah.
But also it's a classic name. Like there's no association with it that could be negative. I mean, it's funny when my daughter met Reverend Horton Heat. Mm-hmm. He goes, "Oh, Vivian, I love that name. I love that name. That's such a pretty name. I think of Vivian Lee." And he was like enamored with this old school name that she had.
Nice.
And she, it was cool. He spent way too much time talking to her. Not in the bad way. Not like, I don't think that the Reverend Horton Heat wanted to fuck my daughter, but it was very funny because it was at an in-store, and he got up and he played and he talked about songwriting. It was like just him, not the whole band and everything. And it was really cool. And then afterwards there was basically a signing line with a bunch of fucking assholes that had like memorabilia and guitars and stuff that they were going to have him sign and then they were going to put up on eBay. Uh-huh. And he knows this. And so he spent like 15 minutes talking to my daughter. One, because he's a good guy and he wanted to do something special for a child. And he appreciated the unexpected interaction. Uh-huh. But also, it was a huge fuck you to like all these guys like holding like backpacks full of swag and everything,
Yeah, he should just write like struggling to think of one of the Hanson brothers' names, but like or just like write Taylor Swift on it.
Yeah, no, I mean he puts up with it. It was. He's sponsored by Gretsch, and it was like a Gretsch-based tour. So,
do you think we could get him on the show?
I would love to talk to the Reverend Horton Heat.
All right, why don't you try getting a hold of him and see if he'll come on our show?
I will.
All right, cool. I think it's time for our listener challenge, and I think we should save the stock thing for another episode. Unless you're like really hot to do it now.
I was just fresh in my mind, and you just mentioned it.
I did mention it. Let's roll for it.
All right, roll.
All right, so 1, 2, 3 will be Stocks. 4, 5, 6 will be Vonnegut. It's a 2. For our listener challenge, we are going to invite you to your mission should you choose to accept it. We're not taking any responsibility for any financial losses or gains that you may receive. But if you choose to play along, here's what we're going to do. We're going to randomly buy some stocks. You want to talk about your methodology, Damon?
Yeah. So I found a Yahoo Finance article from, let's see where this was written, because that might be a problem. July 25th, 2024, which is a couple months ago. So this might not be accurate. We might have a problem there. But it is a list of 100 promising stocks you can currently buy for less than $5 a share.
Awesome.
So the idea that I had actually when I woke up this morning was just in my head. And I definitely have, I could talk about this briefly, but I definitely have this mental power or affliction that when I have a problem while I'm sleeping, I will often sub-process it and wake up and have an answer to. And I think I had gone to bed thinking about, fun things to do on this show. Uh-huh. And woke up with that thought in my head.
I know a hypnotist that calls that dream incubation.
Yeah.
And since talking to him about it, this is how I do presentations now too, but he told me that when he is going to do a presentation, he doesn't spend a lot of time planning it ahead of time. He goes to bed the night before, and this is a bit of a self-hypnosis technique, but he goes to bed the night before, and he basically gives himself an intention that I am going to dream incubate the topic of this presentation, and I will awaken with a fully formed idea of how my presentation will be.
Interesting.
And his name is Sean Carson, if I want to give credit where credit is due. Sean Carson, excellent hypnotherapist and hypnosis teacher out of New York City. I have done it many times, yes.
So I'll tell you I know exactly when the first time I did it was.
Yeah?
I was probably 17, and I had modified my bass to put a drop D lever from Hip Shot on, which is a lever you flip that changes it from an E to a D tuning on the lowest string. But it wouldn't work because it kept pegging, because it was a 2-on-2 bass headstock, and it kept pegging the other tuning key and not working properly. And I looked at it and I puzzled over it, and I was really pissed off because I really wanted this, because it was the band that I was in had like 2 songs that were in drop D, and it was annoying to stop and tune during a song. If I can just flip a switch and I'm ready, that's advantageous. Anyway, so I was pissed off, and I went to bed thinking about this problem. And when I woke up in the morning, I had a picture in my head of taking the opposing key from the other side and turning it 45 degrees. Uh-huh. Which left clearance for the other one to kick over. And I did that, and it worked, and I was amazed. And it was kind of like, it was a stupid epiphany, right? But from that point on, I thought, okay, I went to bed thinking about this problem, and my brain took over while I was sleeping, and I didn't dream about that.
Right.
I just woke up in the morning, and there was a ticker tape in my brain that was said, well, here's your answer.
Well, there's subconscious processing. And part of what dreams is your subconscious processing, things that you've experienced and ideas that you have and that sort of thing. And so this is a common thing. It's often called the eureka phenomenon, not specifically with respect to sleep. Sleep is a little bit of a different animal, but the eureka phenomena is when you are thinking about a problem, when you're just focused on it consciously, you tend to think in the same ruts. It's hard to think outside the box. Like, it's easy to say think outside the box. It's hard to do it until you say, screw it. I've been thinking about this for an hour. I'm going to go weed the garden. And you're just like out there and you're weeding the garden, and then all of a sudden you're not even thinking about it. You're just like, oh, it's a sunny day. I'm sweating. I'm working in my garden. And then all of a sudden, like, whoa, I have an idea for this problem I've been thinking about. And that happens all the time.
Oh yeah. I exploit it heavily. So that's something I've learned in like the last 10 years, and to great effect, that I know if I'm working and I have a problem with some piece of code or something like that, and I'll mess with it for 5 minutes. But if I don't have any idea how to proceed, I will immediately start doing something else that is very intensive, but unrelated.
Mm-hmm.
It used to be building and assembling circuits for musical expression.
Uh-huh.
Lately, it's been designing the dice. But I find that if I take a half hour, it's usually about a half hour. If I stop thinking and start thinking about a completely different, unrelated problem in a totally different genre, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it can't just be another work thing.
Right.
It has to be completely separate. In the middle of doing that other process, I will have it'll pop into my head.
Mm-hmm.
Not necessarily the answer, but a very abstract avenue to explore that is always, it's always fortuitous. And there have been times where I've come up with really brilliant stuff that way.
Yeah, totally.
By just putting it on the shelf. Another great time, one of my most productive times, is showering.
Mm-hmm.
And you're focused on the physical action of cleaning your body. And then all of a sudden it'd be like, oh. And then something will pop into your head that's an answer,
Shower thoughts.
Yeah. I mean, if I probably, probably a great way to do this is exercise, but I'm not a big fan.
All right, let's buy some stocks.
All right. So I have a list of 100.
You have a list of 100, and I'm gonna do this too. I need D100.
Just 2D10.
One of them.
There should be
I got them. Yep, I got them here. And the match. I picked out 2 that match. It's actually 100 set.
Yep, same. I have another 100 set. So
all right, I'm gonna actually. I think you said you were gonna pick one and then roll for how many shares to get.
Yes.
I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna roll for how many stocks to pick.
Oh.
And then I'll buy a handful of shares of each of those.
No. I like.
So I think I'll just do.
Like
I'm trying to decide whether I'm
D6.
going to do D6 or like 2D6 or something like that.
D6. I mean, it depends on how much money you want to play with.
I don't want to only buy one though. That would be no fun.
I mean, well, if that's what Fortuna says,
I guess if that's what Fortuna says,
that's fun.
Then, well, if it's not fun, it's because Fortuna gives you sometimes fun and sometimes not.
Or Fortuna
that's how
was
she
trying
rolls.
to minimize your risk.
Absolutely. All right, so I'm going to roll a D6 for how many stocks I will pick.
All right, I'm going to do the same thing.
Cool.
I'm going to do the same. So, let's go.
All right, I'm rolling. Fortuna! I'm buying 6 stocks.
I'm Ryan 1.
Oh, man. Which is what you were going to do anyway.
Yeah.
It's brilliant.
That's funny. No, I literally rolled a 1.
I will never doubt Fortuna again.
Yep. All right, so I'm going to roll my first one here. So I've got a D100, which is 2 D10s. One is marked with the numbers 0 through 9, and the other one is marked with 10 through 00.
Powers of 10.
Yeah, powers of 10. So if you're not familiar, I know most people. 92. 92.
Which is stock number 92?
Let's find out. Come on, motherfucker. Let's scroll through
Apparently, this is a
giant list.
podcast that we swear on, damn it.
I wouldn't be on anything else.
I know. That's the price of
I am
Damon.
buying Future Fuel Corp.
All
Fuel Corp and its subsidiary countries manufacture and sell a range of chemical, bio-based fuel, and other bio-based specialty chemical products. This might be an out. Well, we'll see. I'll have to decide because... So now I'm opening my E-Trade app.
Oh, don't buy it now. It's after hours.
Oh, I'll just put it in the order.
All right.
I'll just buy it, and then on Monday it'll buy.
All right.
So, go ahead and start your
I'm gonna
process.
roll.
Yeah.
I got 65.
Future Fuel Corp is at $5.71 currently, and actually looking at its yield, it's not bad. It looks like it's pretty constant. So now I'm going to roll another D100 to see how many shares of the stock I'm going to buy. So, clinkety clankies. I'm going to buy 54 shares. So
All right.
54 shares at $5.71. It is higher than the $5 mark, but I'm rolling with it.
Wow, you're really all in on this, aren't you?
Yeah.
All right, can you tell me what stock number 65 is?
65. Let's go through this list. This is fun. I just spent $302.94. What was it? 65?
65.
VVPR. Vivo
VVPR.
Power International PLC. Vivo Power is a global enterprise specializing in battery technology, electric vehicles, solar energy, and other critical power services with a special focus on providing sustainable energy solutions.
Energy stocks are probably a dividend stock, too.
That's dope.
83.
You used to buy 80. Oh,
No, give me 83.
did you write that down?
I did, yeah.
Okay.
VBPR.
83. IHS Holding Limited. Now doing business as, quote, IHS Towers, this company is among the largest telecommunications infrastructure providers in Africa, Latin America, and the Middle East, ranking as the fourth largest independent multinational tower company.
Awesome. Thank you, Fortuna. Okay, 85.
85. BWEN, Broadwind Incorporated. Broadwind manufactures and sells structures, equipment, and components primarily for wind-driven green technology and other specialized applications within the United States.
I'm getting great picks here. Who needs a stockbroker? I got number 1.
Number 1.
Yes.
Oh, that's all right. Hold on one second, please.
That's on the percentile dice. It's a 00 on the tens die and a 1 on the 10 die. That's 1.
Wait.
That's the only way you could get 1.
Right. You're right. CRKN, Crown Electrokinetics. This smart glass technology company is an offshoot of Hewlett-Packard and markets a product called Dynamic Tint, which can enable any glass surface from Windows displays or conference room tables to transition between transparent and opaque within seconds.
Like magic.
That's cool, man.
All right, number 5.
Number 5.
There'll be one more after this.
CETX, Semtrex Incorporated. Semtrex provides innovative technology solutions to a wide range of corporate clients like Corning Glass, Daimler Mercedes, and Harman Kardon. The company has recently branched out from electronics manufacturing to emerging technologies, including AI-based analytics and smart video management solutions.
All right, that doesn't sound quite as exciting to me, but...
No, but it's cuspy. It's trading at 20 cents, according to this article, so...
so it's at least cheap.
Yeah.
Let's go for the last one is number 25.
Number 25. 25. Dixie Group Incorporated, DXYN. Dixie Group is a manufacturer of tufted broadloom carpets, custom rugs, and proprietary yarns used in textile production.
Wow, that's super old school.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah, all right. Good. A lot of tech stocks, a lot of green energy stocks, and one dinosaur.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'll go ahead and put my orders in on those.
How many shares are you buying of each now?
I don't know, a couple.
I mean, you just have to roll something for it. What's your range? You want to just do like 0 to 10? You want to keep it cheap? I went for 100 as my set base. But
yeah, I'm not buying.
You don't want to spend that much money.
I'm not spending that much money.
So roll a d6 for each one of them. You buy between 1 and 6 shares.
Okay. So the BPR, I'm buying 4. I don't know if that's just 4 for IHS. 1 for BWEN. That hardly seems worth it. 6 for CRKN. Oops. 6 for CETX. And here comes Yarn. Buying 4 of the Yarn stock. All right. Then we'll follow up with how those do.
Yeah, we'll just... I mean, it doesn't have to be a money maker.
Next episode, we
It'll
might
just
be
be
wearing
fun to
barrels
see.
instead of clothes.
No. We're not going to go over Niagara Falls.
All right. Well, listener challenge, if you choose to accept it, you've heard the methodology here. Go off and roll some random stocks, buy only what you can afford. I'm not telling you to buy anything. I'm saying this is what we did, and if you choose to do it too, please let us know what you did and what happened.
And just to addenda is that we talked before the podcast about a couple different versions of this. I thought it was fun to just pick a list, some generated list of 100 stocks, really just looking for something to roll off of for die, easeability or whatever you want to say. But you could also pick like, top 10 hot stocks or something like that if you want to go that way. It's just about choosing a list. It's not about...
Yeah, find a list and then, roll or randomly generate your number and go from there.
Exactly.
If, that's what we did. We're not telling anybody to buy stocks on this show.
No, but it's fun. I mean, it'll be interesting to see how they perform.
Nobody's going to sue us because we're declaiming liability right now. We're not telling you to do it. We're saying this is a thing that can be done, and we did it. And whatever you do is under your own control.
I mean, this isn't a cult; it's a podcast.
Yeah, it will be a cult if I have my way.
That's true.
We'll get there. Anyhow, thank you, listeners, for listening, and do let us know your random activities and how we can improve the show by emailing us. Thanks for listening, and see you next.
You forgot.
Oh, yes.
We have a new show closer.
The random quote. So
I was
getting shitty quotes. You go ahead and introduce it.
Well, Misha was coming up with a random quote. Like, it was... I understood the idea, but he didn't have a methodology for it. But I happened to be looking over one of my bookshelves this week, and I found this book that I bought in the 90s called The Heretic's Handbook of Quotations, which is just... Now would be just a website, right? But in the 90s, it was something worth buying a $15 book over. And so it's got different topics. And you want to read through the topics? Read through the topics.
Why?
Because it's divided
I'm not
into
doing
sections.
it that way.
I know, but just to give listeners an idea.
There are topics such as... I don't know where the fucking contents are. Politics, choosing one's masters... The law, the state, freedom, express yourself, anarchism, Marxism, revolution, patriotism, nationalism and imperialism, the military, war, property, capitalism, labor, police, and thieves. Living in the USA, and it does say living with a apostrophe. Women, and there's a subcategory to women called misogyny. Human, all too human. You are what... That's one category. Human, all too human.
Mm-hmm.
You are what you enjoy. There's a lot of... I'm not going to read all
There's
of
a
this.
vibe. There's a vibe here.
This book must be from the 70s.
I mean, it's called The Heretic's Handbook of Quotations.
It's from 1988.
Yeah.
They had a very 70s mentality.
No, but at the time I was buying a lot of anarchist and counterculture type books. I think the favorite book... I have to dig it out sometime because I think you would really enjoy it. It's a book full of people telling stories about how they were subversive in their workplace.
Oh, nice!
And there's some great stories in there. Everything from a dude who worked at a grocery store who every day he had this thing that could take a grocery cart and with a wire shoot it up and hang it from the top of the building. And he did that every day for like 3 years.
Wow. Until
the entire top of this grocery store was ringed in grocery carts just hanging up above it. And they were wondering, who's stealing these grocery carts? Where are they going? What's going on? Like, is somebody selling our grocery carts to other stores? Or, this whole thing and stuff like that. Then there was a dude who was a painter at Disney World who would hide just subversive images in the murals that he painted.
Nice.
It was just fun stuff like that.
Yeah, and we're not telling you to be subversive at work. We're just saying that that's a thing that happens.
That's fun to read
and
about.
What you do is your own business.
Sabotage in the American Workplace. That was the name of the book.
All right. Well, so we've got 224 pages in this book of subversive quotations, and I'm going to select a random number from 1 to 224 on random.org, which is... I think if you're in a pinch, you don't have dice, you need some randomness, random.org is your best bet. I'm not saying it's better than dice, Damon.
No.
I'm just
I mean,
saying,
dice are limited in the fact that they have
available
number ranges that are limited.
Of the available computer-generated randomness, random.org is unquestionably the best.
I love random.org.
And they're not even paying us yet, but we do hope they will sponsor us eventually. And you can, like, what Damon said was, well, there's 224 pages. How are you going to roll for that? I'm like, I just go to, because there's not a 224-sided die, at least not the one that we have. But I can just go to random.org, and on the front page, right in the top, there's a little widget that I can just type in my minimum number of 1, my maximum number of 224, click the button, and I get 61. So I go
to
ahead
page 61.
Turn to page 61.
What we'd agreed upon beforehand was that you just read whatever the shortest one was on the page.
I've picked out 6 relatively short ones, so go ahead and roll a d6, and
All right.
And I'll pick one of the shorter ones. 4? Okay. Not super short, but it's short-ish. Trust me, compared to what else is on this page, this is relatively short.
Yeah, I can see.
Our task is that of pushing the people to demand and to seize all the freedom they can and to make themselves responsible for providing their own needs without waiting for orders from any kind of authority. Our task is that of demonstrating the uselessness and harmfulness of government, of provoking and encouraging by propaganda and action all kinds of individual and collective initiatives.
Nice. Who said that?
And that's from L'Adunato dei Refrati on December 26, 1931. Anarchism was huge in the 30s.
Yeah. Who said it, though?
It was that whatever I just said.
Oh, it's only telling you what book it was in?
It's like a book or a publication or something.
Oh. Yeah.
So there you go. It didn't attribute authorship. But a lot of those anarchists are like that. They're like, I speak for the people, or the people speak for me, or whatever.
I need to be attributed. I am one.
I'm Monty Canson.
As Smashing Pumpkins said.
All right, and that's it. See you next time.
Thanks for tuning in.